In this class, I will discuss with you the stakeholder conflict and the Mendalow's power interest matrix. Let's get started to discuss about the stakeholder conflict. In an organization, you can expect there are many different stakeholders. And for each stakeholders, they have different needs. Sometimes the needs of some stakeholders will come into conflict with the others. I will show you some examples to demonstrate how the conflict between different stakeholders in an organization. And for a manager, he or she has to understand well about the different needs of different stakeholders in their organization. If they fail to do it, it means that many important stakeholders do not have their needs to be met, and it is a disaster for the company. First, let's look at the employees versus managers. For an employee, they are looking for job security, salary, or wages. And for the managers, they are looking for, say, salaries, job security, but they also look for the bonus. How to get the bonus? It is many companies, the bonus are performance-based. It means that the company has to be profitable, the sales target has to be met, and also the cost running the organization should be as low as possible. It means the cost efficiency. The conflict between employees and managers mainly from the cost efficiency. The employees is looking for higher salary, higher pay, but the managers is looking for minimal cost to run the business. So there are conflicts between them. Next, customers versus shareholders. For customers, they are looking for high quality of goods or services provided. They are looking for value for money. The products or services should be affordable or even the cheapest in the market with the high quality. It is the opposite. Sometimes it is the opposite as the shareholders demand or needs, because the shareholders, they are looking for profits or dividends. They would like to maximize their profits from the company so that they can have more dividends paid by the company. And it is the conflict between them. For the general public, they are looking for some environmental issue. So they expect the company or the organization to be environmental friendly. The community or the general public are happy with them. But for shareholders, they are looking for cost minimization. They would like to minimize all the costs as much as possible, and because they are looking for profits or dividends. In other words, the shareholders sometimes they don't care too much about the environmental issue in the operation. And the last example here is the manager versus shareholders. For the shareholders, they are looking for growth. For example, they are looking for dividends, profits growth. But for managers, they would like to be more independent. They would like to run the business by themselves, by their own decision or judgment. And shareholders would like to see the growth from the company, and they sometimes give the directions to the managers. And there's a conflict between them as well. After sharing with you the examples of different stakeholders' conflict, you have to bear in mind that an organization will need to decide which stakeholders' needs are more important. In other words, the manager has to manage stakeholder needs first, and then to decide how to meet different stakeholders' demand or needs in their plan or in their business. and they have to look for, or they have to look at, the most dominant stakeholders. That is, the one with the most power in an organization. When we talk about to manage the stakeholders' needs, or even how to manage different stakeholders' conflict, we come to the Mendalow's power interest matrix. If an organization is having difficulty deciding who the dominant stakeholder, then they can use this power interest matrix to determine or to find out, highlight who is the party that they are looking for. The matrix here divided into two different angles. First is the level of power. On the left hand side here, the level of power, and on the other side, on the top of the boxes, is the level of interest. You can see, if we talk about level of power, we divide it into high power or low power, and for level of interest, we also divide it into high and low. First, if an individual or a group of people, they have a level of power is classified as high, and their level of interest is also high, then under this Mendalow's power interest matrix, they are classified as key players. It means that they have a very high power influencing the organization, as well as they are very engaged in an organization as well. One example of key players is the major shareholder of a company, and also they involve in the daily or routine operation as well. So they have high level of interest by showing their engagement in an organization, and also they are the major shareholders, so they can they have a very high power based on the hierarchy. And next, we can see another box here is keep satisfied. The group of people under this box, they have high level of power, but their level of interest is low. They are not very interested in the organization. One example is some fund manager or the trust investing in a company. They concern the development of the company, but their power is high because they are the major shareholder of the company, but they don't know how to run the business, or they are just interested in the dividends from the company. So we have to, as a manager, we have to keep satisfied of these parties and update them about the development of the company to make sure they are happy about the future of the company's development and the dividends they expect, maybe say in 1 or 2 years' time. Don't forget here, even we have 4 boxes, or we call 4 quadrants here. For each group of people, they can move around from keep satisfied box to key player box. If their level of interest increase from low to high, then they will change the name from keep satisfied to key players. So I just mentioned about the fund manager or the trust. They invest a lot of money in a company, but they don't know how to operate the company. They don't have a lot of engagement in the company, but they have some expertise. If one day they hire a person who is an expertise in the business, they may change their role from keep satisfied to keep key players, because they have higher level of engagement and level of interest in the company operation. And then another box called keep informed. Here, the party or the group of people, they have low level of power, but they are very interested in the business or in an organization. One example is the staff. The staff of an organization, maybe they are just junior staff, they are very interested in the business or in an organization they are involved or they are working for, but the power of them is maybe a bit low as compared to the shareholders or senior management. So they are engaged in the business or in the organization. The manager has to inform them well about the development of the business, about the company issues, so they can help to solve it, or they have to cooperate with the organization, the management of the organization. So they should be informed for any developments in an organization. The final box here we discuss is about minimal effort. It means that the group of people or party here, they have very low level of power, basically low influence to an organization, and they're not very interested in an organization. One example is a customer just occasionally buy the products from a company, not a frequent buyer. They're looking for some goods or substitute for other brands, for example. So they don't have a lot of power influencing the company's decision, and also they are not very interested in the company as well. So we called this group of people or this group of customer called minimal effort, because they have very little power influencing the company decision, and they are not very interested in the business. Next, we talk about the sources of stakeholder power, and then we would like to highlight what are the elements influencing or on the stakeholder power. We have three elements or sources that influencing the stakeholder power. So first is hierarchy. It provides the people or groups with formal power over others, say the directors or senior manager. In terms of the hierarchy in the organization, they are authorized to be the more powerful persons or people in an organization. So it's just based on the hierarchy itself. They can influence the others on it. And next is influence. Basically, it comes from the personal qualities, say leadership. Sometimes in an organization, management, they are empowered by the hierarchy, so they can work as a leader in an organization. But the manager, the mid-level manager, we can identify some high potential manager with very charming presentation skills and also work very good with other people. They have the personal qualities that can influence others. They are very skillful as well. So the stakeholder power is come from their personal qualities instead of the hierarchy. So it is another sources of stakeholder power. And another sources of stakeholder power comes from the control of the environment. Say knowledge, contact, and influence of the environment. These are the elements or the source of power if they are able to reduce the uncertainty experienced by others. It means that if you have a very strong skills in a particular task, which is very, very important in the daily operation or in the production, then you have the power to influence others, because the others has to learn from you in order to make the product complete or in order to finish the task. That is the control environment make you to be more powerful in the organization. So in the reality, managers need to consider the needs of as many stakeholders as possible. You cannot just, as a manager, you cannot just look at only one type of stakeholder, because you have to coordinate with different stakeholders in order to run the organization in a more smooth way. Sometimes manager has to compromise with the, say, key players in order for a decision making. So the manager, first of all, need to identify the conflicts between stakeholders and then use this power interest matrix to highlight which one or which stakeholders should meet their needs first, and then maybe later time to make a decision to compromise with other stakeholders. So the question here to explain the concepts. First, we have the CHOP Limited. CHOP Limited is a forestry business which leases several large woodlands from the central government of country Z. And it employs about 2,000 members of staff across the country. And this company has over 300 small businesses working with as suppliers. However, its profitability has been poor and it has been struggling to pay any dividends. So right now the company is in a tough time. The company shareholders, they have 3 shareholders. They are angry because of it. Their shareholding structure is which each of them own around 20% of CHOP's share capital, about 40% owned by the public. So no one investor only more than 1% of the total share capital in the public. We have 3 main shareholders, and they asked the board of directors to consider making 200 employees redundant. It means to cut about 10% labor force in the company. And the employees right now within the company are not heavily unionized. So what are the strategies proposed by the Mendalow's matrix for following of the stakeholders? Okay, so remember, we have 4 boxes or 4 quadrants: key players, keep satisfied, keep informed, and minimal effort. So you just match for each of the stakeholders on the options to see how to match. For key players, okay, who are the key players? Who should group under keep satisfied, and who are also grouped or categorized under the keep informed box.